But I think that's what the world is looking for, is people who are willing to take off that mask and be vulnerable, be transparent, be real, to say, like, when I heal, I realize that the sensitivity to joy also comes along with the sensitivity to pain.
My name is Ashanti, and welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast, where men get real. Men of all ages and backgrounds come to this space to talk about these masks we wear. When we talk about the mask, the front of the mask are the things that we gladly let the world see. The front of the mask. The back of the mask are things that we don't talk much about. Maybe yourself, ask yourself, what are the things I'm talking a lot about right now? And what are the things I'm not talking about so much? Today's guest is one of our first repeat guests, Trevor Taylor. Trevor is a yoga instructor, a practitioner. He is building a community of people who are building connection with each other in a really beautiful way. I am excited to have the second conversation with him. Our first conversation went so powerfully and so fast that we said, let's do it again. And I think I've said that to several guests, and then we just never made it happen to get back the person back again. But Trevor was one of those ones who helped us kind of pull the pieces together to get the second recording. And so this is our second episode with him. And there's a piece of the conversation, you may hear it, but you may not notice it because I was more in my head as I was answering. So we're talking about nonviolent communication. And he talks about a practice that he does with his partner as they talk about when something happens that I have a feeling about, that I don't try and talk around it. And you'll hear him describe what he does and the practice he uses with his relationship. And when he said that, I began to remember so many times that I had experienced not only trying to utilize nonviolent communication, the courses that I took, taking classes about kingy and nonviolence. And as I was trying to reply to what he said, which was really powerful, I also was in my head trying to say the right thing, the right words, not make it about me. But in that part of the conversation, I am like stuttering. I'm stumbling with words. Now, when I go back and listen to it a couple of times, I know exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that when something happens and I feel some way about a conversation, I want to tell that person, hey, this is how it made me feel. But sometimes I'm also trying not to tell the person how I feel and trying to talk about it like I'm not feeling the thing. Does that make sense? Like, if you say something and it irritates me, it makes me upset, it makes me frustrated, it makes me sad, I can either say to you, hey, what you said to me really made me feel really sad. But in my community growing up, that's not allowed. And sometimes even in many connections I have with people, that's not really a normal way to talk. So I would just be internalized sad, but we're trying to speak on the outside like I'm not sad, or that I'm not hurt, or that I'm not disturbed by what was said. And sometimes that means I'm communicating from a very not healthy place, a not accurate place, a not truthful place. But maybe I'm trying to do my best to just survive the experience. You know, one of our young men that we work with is going through some tough times right now. There's some conversations he's having with girls at his school that are creating a lot of tension amongst the girls. And the challenge is that in his mind, how he sees some of these conversations, he is just doing his best effort to be flirting. Sometimes he's maybe being hurtful. But what happens when you are not trying to hurt somebody's feelings? What happens if you're not trying to make somebody feel uncomfortable? If that person can't come to you directly and say, hey, what you're saying to me is making me uncomfortable, then they may store it inside. And that's what happened with him. That he didn't know it was happening in the moment, but weeks later, a month later, and not only this one girl, but another girl and another girl, these other students have come forward and said, oh, he made me feel uncomfortable too. And I think what we experience sometime in our work is we have to give all students opportunity to communicate how they feel. And maybe in the moment, they don't feel safe. If they feel threatened, if they feel in danger, they maybe not say something. But I think what I've experienced right now with young people and definitely young men we work with is giving them tools to ask questions. Hey, is what I'm saying, are you okay? And if they're not aware of body language, if no body language changes have happened on the outside, we have to give them tools of saying, hey, how do you own up or how do you apologize for harm that was caused? And I think that's the power of restorative justice and sometimes the challenge, because I didn't try and hurt somebody. I didn't try and hurt somebody's feelings. I didn't try and make somebody feel uncomfortable. And sometimes those practices that we have to do with our young people, giving them tools and helping them repair harm when it has happened, without making them feel like you are wrong or you should feel shame, but also being really mindful of how our behavior and attitude affects others. I hope that you really enjoyed this second conversation with Trevor Taylor. I really enjoyed it. You will notice that I didn't have my microphone. I don't know what was happening. I didn't have a mic. We were just in it in a conversation. It was like a round two of a chat with a friend. And so I think you can hear me really well, but just naming that you're going to see, I don't have all the stuff here. So it was really more of a laid back conversation. Like I was just chit chatting. And I hope that what you get to see, two men coming together, having meaningful conversation, talking authentically, vulnerably with each other, is also part of what you experience here in the Taking Off the Mask podcast. So just naming that end of May is the 20th annual 5K challenge. It's our annual community challenge. We invite you to be a part of that. You will see the link in the show notes, or you can find it on social media, Ever Forward Club or Branch Speaks. You will see, we would love you to be a part. We're bringing alumni back from 20 years ago to be a part of this event. It's going to be at the place where the Ever Forward Club was founded. Ever Forward Club is our non-sponsor sponsor. That's how this podcast is being brought to you. And we are excited that we're back at the original site where Ever Forward Club was founded, San Lorenzo High School. So we look forward to you being a part of the journey with us. If you can't be there live, you can participate virtually. You can run and walk wherever you are in the world, and using the Strava and the Pledge It combination, you can track your 5 kilometers. That's 3.11 miles. So we look forward to you being a part of the journey with us, helping us not only bring awareness, but raise much needed support and funds to continue growing the Million Mask movement. Thank you for being a part of the journey with us. Enjoy today's episode. Bye now. Trevor Taylor, welcome back to the Taking Off the Mask podcast.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be back, man. I'm glad to be back. We got some unfinished business to handle.
Man, that last show went so fast. I was like, what's going on? How did we already hit time? And then we were just kind of getting into the mix. But there was a lot of conversation about education, about wellness, about ourselves, about just going after our goals and dreams, but also just being, just not the doing, but the being, right? And
Yes.
And I think that's what felt like the time just flew by, because oftentimes I think when often do we let ourselves just be and just be we're kind of like waiting for this conversation to finish so we can get to the next one and to the next one. And sometimes it's just like when you get time to lose track of time in a conversation, I think time goes so fast.
Agreed. And it feels good. You know, there's that old saying of time flies when you're having fun, but our conversation was so real, so connective. You know, that's when by the time the time was showing like, hey, it's time for y'all to be done, I was like, nah, we're not ready. We're not ready.
We're just getting started. Well, look, how about this? Tell us where you are right now. Where do we find you? And then we'll just do a quick check-in to introduce yourself for those who missed the first one. Let's let them know who you are, but where are you right now?
Yeah.
And then we'll jump in.
Well, yeah, man. My name is Trevor Taylor. I am a content creator, wellness advocate, yoga instructor, and community leader. Right now, living in the Pacific Northwest. I'm up in the Seattle area. And what I'm doing right now is working with some local community members, leaders, to find ways to bring wellness to our community. Because we're realizing, especially on this side of town where I'm at, wellness is definitely overlooked for the neighboring community members. A lot of us being of color. And we're realizing we can't wait on the city to show up for us. We got to show up for ourselves. So me and other community leaders are finding ways to collaborate, put together some events, and hold space for those who not only just want to move their bodies, but need the education to do so. Alongside with the local community, I'm actually putting together an online community, which is a branch off of the business called The Sanctuary, which will be a place for healers, those who are healing and those who are already experiencing some healing for themselves to come together and to share resources, share our experiences, share our testimony about how we've had an opportunity to go through some healing and realizing it's not all pretty, it's not all blissful, right? But it can't be done alone. And so I understood that now from a personal standpoint of, yes, I can do a lot by myself, but when I'm with other people who can help me become a better version of myself, then we as a collective can like change the community both online and in person. So that's the mission right now. People can find me on Instagram at just like Trevor. In the bio, that's where they'll find the broadcast channel for the sanctuary, get some more information so that they can stay in tune on how they can be a part of that community. Because this healing process is not supposed to be done solo dolo.
And oftentimes I think in the idea of healing, it almost feels like it has to be alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine, like I've had a couple of circles that I'm on WhatsApp or whatever. And I think like somebody will put a question out, like, does anybody know a therapist or how to find one? And you'll see a couple of people chime in. Oh, I tried this, I tried that. It almost even to try and go to a place of getting to the healing, it almost feels like that courageous person may open the door for many people to get some of those resources, right? Like you're like, oh wait, I called them and they said they just got booked like as of yesterday. Somebody from this space got in ahead of me where I was the one calling for the question. And now everyone who's been waiting was like, thank goodness somebody else asked. Goodness, thanks you for somebody else for asking. Let me jot that number down right here. Let me call them right now. And the person who actually was looking for it didn't get it. You know, it's like, oh, okay. So more people were looking for it than even knew. But and sometimes it's hard to ask. It's hard to. I can say that for myself. Like, oh, where do I start? Okay, which group can I write this in and not feel like I'm dissolving my essence of who I am? Because, and not that I should, but it's in the back of my mind saying it, right? It's in the recesses of my being, right? Because I've linked my being to my doing so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like my work, and I over since our last conversation, I think some new revelations of like I have a unhealthy connection between doing. Like I feel like I have to always be doing something, right? And so if I'm not doing something, if I want to take Saturday off and just do nothing and just be around the house and it's 1 o'clock and I'm still just kind of like, what am I going to do? And feeling like I'm being a lazy bum. What's wrong with you, Ashanti? Why are you being so lazy? Not even acknowledging the fact that I had 18 meetings this week, like that I just trudged through, right? Like not that I've just been traveling and like, no, but still, you're supposed to be doing something. You're supposed to be getting up and getting at it, right? And I think even that part of like, do something, be doing something all the time. And it's some old recordings. I know some of it comes from my mom. I know, and I'm blaming her as naming it, right?
Right.
Like the reality is that in my mom's house growing up, you can't be sitting around doing nothing. Like you could have just cleaned every wall in the house and you just lay on the floor for 30 seconds, just catching your breath. And she will walk by the door and be like, you mean I'm gonna be out here doing some stuff and you in here laying on the floor? And in my mind, I'm like, this gotta be a movie. Cause I swear, I just got on I just like stopped moving. You know, and it's in my mind. It's ingrained in there in old recordings that I'm working to erase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's part of the work too.
Man, ain't it? You know, but honestly, being aware of it is the first step. Because if you don't even realize that that's a pattern that you have and the impact that it's having on you, then we'll keep doing it because we think that's just the norm. That's how it's always been.
That's right. That's right.
So
That's
shout
the
out
norm.
to you for doing the work.
Man, well, shout out to this. So let's do this. Let's do a check-in. Maybe since this is our first time, you're our first guest who we've brought back second time. And so we're doing this new. Like we've already made a mask together, so we don't need to do that. My thought as I was like just starting to chat, and I'm always taking like little notes here. I'm gonna just take a piece of paper and I'm just gonna either draw or I'm just gonna be scribbling. You know?
I like that.
And so I think I kind of think by writing. And so I got a crayon here, and I'm gonna do that on my end, and whatever you feel good for yourself to do on that end. And then we'll just let the conversation flow. I mean, I think that because this is our first time, I try and make these conversations as organic as possible. There's no formula. There's no script. It's really connection. So we're already in it. The episode's already started, right?
Yeah.
It was started before I even push record, right? It was like, hey, what's up, man? Good to see you again. Like old friend, right?
Yeah.
So in this, we will just chat. And I imagine it will go where it's supposed to go. I know education will come up because I have a couple of things that have come up since our last conversation that I want to check in about. And maybe you have some thoughts that come up, and maybe people have said something to you about that episode and you want to, I don't know. So let's just let it go. But let's do a check-in. Maybe the way we do it ever forward, our check-ins, we go like on a scale from 1 to 10, how are you doing? So you can just, 1 is the worst, 10 is the best. Give it a number. And then maybe just for the sake of this time, we'll do a rose and a thorn. Maybe like a rose, maybe something that's going well, that's creating some beauty in your life, and a thorn. And it doesn't have to, a thorn is not there to hurt the rose. It's not there to hurt. It's there to protect, right? So maybe a thorn is just something that's maybe a little edgy, prickly, a little creating a little bit of discomfort or maybe hurting. Maybe it's like, God dog it, this thorn won't get out my side, right? Like whatever it may be, whatever comfort level you have. And we'll start there with our check-in, and then I imagine wherever it's going to go, it's going to go. Yeah?
Let's do it. I'm with that.
Right on. So you want to go first or you want me to go first? How you want to do it? You're the guest, but you're a second-time guest, so you're like fam right now.
Right.
So how we doing this? We're going to go.
I'll start it off. I'll check in.
Okay.
What's funny is I actually started to put together another mask.
Okay.
For the simple fact of checking in with myself to say, man, since our last time, have there been any things that have stuck out to me? Primarily in the realm of like, what parts am I still hiding or a little more resistant to showing people? Lately, I've realized that, I'm really stepping into my leadership role, something that I've been born to do. I've been a leader my whole life, but I didn't always want to be the leader. I think that was the difference. And I realized why. Part of that was my fear of judgment. So being able to recognize when I might not do something because I'm more timid about what other people might think about me, which, that's a rabbit hole, but and some of that leading to some shame because I start to judge myself on what I did before.
Yeah.
And identifying with my past actions rather than the present character that I know I have, and navigating the realm of laziness, determining, am I doing something because I feel like I'm supposed to? Or am I doing something, maybe even avoiding something because I just don't feel like it? And so for me, it's been a interesting time as I've stepped back into the realm of being a leader in the local community rather than just in the online space and saying, oh, I have some gifts, but I also realize that there are parts of me, some old patterns, some negative self-talk that's limiting my ability to show up and offer that gift to the people. So my heart is filled. If I had to give myself a rate of 1 to 10, even when you said it, I wanted to say 10. And then I had this thought like, no, you can't say that. You're at 8. And I was like, no, like I feel like a 10, man. My heart is happy. Like my joy is radiant. Life is moving in a positive direction. And I see my part in it, and because of that, I feel incredibly happy about where I'm at, making better decisions for myself to continue to encourage healthy habits, even when I don't necessarily feel like it. And that has allowed me to feel so empowered. So I'm gonna say I'm at a 10 today, and I'm not afraid to take up that space. I'm not afraid to joyfully boast about this current place of my life because I've done the work in order to get here. I deserve this because I've earned it, So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you for that 10. I've been on the men's team for a lot of years, and I think we've had seasons where we're checking in at 10 pretty regularly for a long time, and then it will hit some seasons of other. And I think even for myself is like I usually just come in at 8, 8. I think 8 is safe, right? I don't want to create too much attention. You know, if I go down to 6, we have a rule that below 7 is like we got to check back in with you. So I go, okay, I don't want nobody saying nothing to me right now. I'm not there at a 10. I'm not willing to say there. You know, every once in a while I'll say a 9. Like I'm feeling like a 9, but I always got some shit to complain about, right? So I can always, always gonna find something. I'm never where I really want to be because my expectations of myself are way sometimes unreasonable. They are often unreasonable to really sane, good people in my life. Like, dude, like, did you just get this grant? Like, aren't you happy about this? Of course, yeah, we're happy, but now we got to fulfill it. Like, we just got the resources. Now we got to do the work. Like, I ain't got time to be cheering about the resources. I have an expectation now on my back, right? Like
Mhm.
and it's like, wait, but can you just celebrate? Can you just? And I think I need more of that. I need to honor more of that. And so today I'm just in alignment with how I really check in. I just say, you know, I should actually see. And this is okay. Here, okay, good. We're having this moment. So the other side of me is also true. It's almost the both and, right? It's like I'm also if I let myself think long enough and I'm not in a show mode, like there's some areas that I'm like a 6 and 5. Like I'm carrying some heavy grief just right behind the surface. It won't take much for me to like cry on this show today, right? Like I it's right here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I feel myself dancing, right? Like don't do it, don't open it up, don't open it up, don't open it up, don't open it up, like because I want to be able to finish the show in a good way, right? I want to have another repeat of the extremely meaningful conversation before, but and also I want to be real, right? I want to be real.
Yeah.
And I want to be, because I got good masks and I've been practicing them for a lot of years, I could go through this show smiling the whole time and no one would know that right now, like I'm that far away from crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm right there. And as long as I don't talk about something in that area, I can just fake it till I keep making it, right?
Yep.
And I've done that for years. I mean, till I got grays. I've been practicing for much longer in my life of not showing emotions than I have, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like an old man crying all the time because I'm like, dude, you you're crying more than you did as a baby. Like, what's happening? Because I've went so many years of just like shutting it off.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's real. So I'm an 8 right here in this present moment as I'm trying not to address the fact that sometimes I feel like a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real. And I'm glad that you were able to mention that, on the air, because to be able to say where I want to be ideally versus where I feel like I am and seeing both sides, I think that's a huge part of taking off the mask. We don't take off the mask if we don't realize we're wearing it. Sometimes we've worn a mask for so long, we look in the mirror and believe that's who we truly are. We fooled the whole world, maybe, right? Or we fooled ourselves for long enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's what the world is looking for, is people who are willing to take off that mask and be vulnerable, be transparent, be real, to say like, when I heal, I realize that the sensitivity to joy also comes along with the sensitivity to pain.
Mm. Mm. Being willing to look at both sides, right?
Yeah.
Some sides are more uncomfortable than others. I think it's definitely, in my experience, much more comfortable to focus on the joy. Hey, people feel good around you
Yeah.
when you're in joy mode, right? People feel good around you when you're in life of the party mode, right? When you're in always on his stuff mode, right?
Yep.
And then the other side feels like it may not get the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may not receive the same. I heard I don't know where I heard it, but I remember a question that asked this, and I'll ask you this. Where are you fully known,
Mm-hmm.
Trevor? Where are you in your life fully known?
In my relationship with my partner. Man, KJ sees what I would call the good and bad, the dark and light. But the beauty of it, because she knows me so well, she does not see them as dark or light. She sees them as, me, and she fully accepts me and embraces me for who I am. And I believe that having a safe space outside of my own solitude that allows me to show up and know that there is no shame or judgment. I can come to her with anything, no matter how difficult the conversation may be between us. I know that she's going to meet me with the most amount of grace, love, and compassion that she has. And simultaneously, I'm going to do the same for her. And it's truly because of our relationship over the past 3 years that I've experienced so much healing, because like I was saying, you can't do this healing thing by yourself. You can get so far, but after a while you plateau and you realize like I need some support. I need some help. And scripture says that it's not good for man to be alone. So in the second chapter of Genesis, it said, I provided a suitable helper for him. I had to revisit that scripture and then look at my life and say, man, like I see where my help comes from. I've been provided a suitable helper, not just anybody. Man, she is exactly what I've needed and then some. And the more I study how she interacts with me, especially on the days when I'm not my best, when I'm not at a 10 or I'm not at an 8, where I might be a 5, she checks in with me. She holds that space as best as she can. And then she supports me in taking care of myself and say, hey, if you need to take some time, like do what you need to do. So when it comes to my partner, my romantic relationship, man, that is the safest space I've experienced, honestly, ever. Where a lot of the parts that still hold a lot of pain and shame, resentment, anger, frustration, she meets it with grace. And she allows me to say these things, to process things that I maybe wasn't sure if anybody else in the world would ever take the time to listen to without trying to fix me. She just be like, look, if that's how you feel, I know that the feelings are fleeting. So let's let them come up. And I'm so thankful, eternally thankful, because with that woman, man, she has allowed me to take up more space than I ever thought I'd ever be able to do in the presence of another human being.
Thank you for the answer. I think it's really beautiful, and what I've experienced, and definitely the times I've asked people in my circles or in these conversations, is that so many men I meet don't have a place to be like fully both sides, right? And I think that's so beautiful, because the question that follows that up is, and the question, because it came to me as a question like that, so I was like, nowhere. My answer is, yeah, there's nowhere.
Yeah.
There's no one, right? I got men's team there. They know a whole lot, family knows what they know and blah, 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 but fully nowhere, right? And I think, and his question after that, my mentor was like, is it possible to be fully loved if you're not fully known? Right? Like, so what people get to love is what you've created, this crafted being, this crafted, right? And I think it was connected to the idea that me being having fear of sharing like difficult topics, like, hey, I'm dealing with some frustration with some of these principals in some schools, right? Like, and I want to but I don't want to make them mad. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, it's not saying what my soul is telling me I should say about how we can make education better, because I'm afraid of tipping the boat for the school that first of all haven't brought us in the first place. So I'm trying to I'm trying to play nice to convince them that they should bring us in, but ultimately they're not doing the work that I think is going to be a best service. And so I dance around those, and I think those are that's in the chapter that I'm in right now. Is like, okay, it's time to decide that you're going to make a move, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, this is going to be a season of some discomfort. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think it sounds good. And then it's like, you get the phone, you're like, so let me tell you. And it's like, No. We can't do that. We can't. Okay. Let me try a different tone. Somebody told me to tell, like, that's, I go to that, I hear that Kevin Hart scene. I'm like, my mama told me to tell you. Oh man. But so you're just like, well, what am I gonna say? Like, how do I do this from the heart, but also from from a sovereign place of like, I'm not gonna dance around the fact that you have done a disservice to those students at that school.
Mm-hmm.
And not as a place of like point fingers. It's about a place of here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm hearing, and here's what I'm noticing. Here's what students are saying out in the world. Here's what I think students at your school are experiencing. And to turn a blind eye to it, to not address it, is not serving them in the best possible way.
Right.
But sometimes I think that when I come, because I carry this frame, that I can't speak clearly because people think I'm being threatening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not coming from that intent. And yeah, I can easily say, well, it wasn't the intent. But when you cause harm, you cause harm, and you can't be like, well, it's your fault for hearing it wrong.
Right.
Right? It's like there's a dance between how you heard it and how I said it, but also how I am delivering and being mindful of my own delivery, right? And I can't be less than 6'1", 300+ pounds. Or I can't not at least like today. Maybe a couple of weeks I can just shrink a little bit, right? But today, this is how it's gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
Full mass. Right?
Yeah. There's a technique that I've learned in my yoga teacher training and in therapy called nonviolent communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it's really helpful, especially as a Black man, because one, you already have the label of Black. So some people have this preconceived notion about you based on the color of your skin. Then you come in as a man, and a man of stature, where they're like, oof, man, like, again, you're just compiling these stereotypes onto one another. And then they feel that in their nervous system, whether it was even intentional or not, subconsciously, they believe you are posing a threat potentially. So nonviolent communication is the practice of observing, like stating something objective, stating your own feelings, then stating what you would like to see happen, and then presenting an opportunity for collaboration to say, how can we solve this issue? So an example of how I use that in my relationship is say, hey, baby, I realized that when you said to, go look for it on your own, I took that personally and I felt a bit uneasy. I felt, I began to get a little agitated. And what I would like for us to find a way to do is to maybe find a new way to communicate with one another so that I don't have that same reaction. Is there something that we can do together that we might come up with as a plan or a code word that might help you get your message across and me not take offense to it? So then I'm not pointing the blame at anybody. I'm just stating, this is what I'm observing. This is how it impacted me. This is what I would like to do. Can we come together to find a solution on that? Really helpful technique in avoiding conflict while still not being passive. You're being proactive. Hey, this already happened. It is what it is. Moving forward, how can we be better?
Yeah.
So nonviolent communication, if there's anything I can offer you and anybody else, it is that approach to communication, because it has saved so much time and energy between my partner and I, so that we don't have to bicker and argue, having conversations that are fueled by emotions, rather than we can say, look, I see it now. I see my part in it. I'm holding myself accountable to what's taking place. I want to know, can you join me in accountability so that we can make sure that our relationship, our bond, our connection is a priority in this manner? If we have a shared vision, an end vision and goal, then let's both work toward that.
That is powerful. And I thank you for bringing that back to the surface, because I think, in my mind, when I'm doing that, I think I may skip the feeling. I go from the objective, what I would like, and I may skip needing to, or not, like making room for the fact that there was a feeling that happened because of what I'm naming. I'm naming this thing, but I'm not connecting it to a feeling. I think that gap in there can create some confusion on the person. Like, oh, it will be more like judgment because I'm not naming that. Here's what it's definitely what I experienced, but I'm not connecting it to a real. It's probably coming in some energy from my words, but it's not I'm not naming it. So if I leave that out, then I'm basically making room for the person either to not know how it affected me directly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, okay. All right. You're just pointing out some fact to me. Okay. But if I can name, okay, this created some tension, some frustration, some sadness. It created some worry. It created some, and I think that is, yeah. I took a course with a brother here in Oakland named Kazu. It was a Kingian nonviolence course, and this is when you said it, I'm like, oh, this is it's in there somewhere. It has been, it just needs to be dusted off. The cobwebs have been covering up your feelings. It was like, don't talk about the feelings, right? I'm not afraid to talk about feelings, but I think sometimes in those business settings, right, in those professional settings, we're like, oh, there's no room for feelings here. So let me just talk about the facts and how I want to see it better. But I think it's so valuable to speak to that part so that it doesn't get misconstrued. I'm not angry. I'm actually sad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, but if I don't tell you what I'm feeling, you get to make up a story about what I'm feeling because of how the energy you feel me coming through. You get to define my energy if I don't tell you actually what the feeling actually is.
Yep. And what they say, assuming just makes an ass out of you and me. But if I don't define it for you, if I don't make it clear on how I feel, then I'm going to leave room for you to assume. And that's what the brain is here for. The brain is to make predictions based off of past experiences. And if you don't give me a solid answer, then I'm going to make a prediction myself.
I have to for my own safety. Like, wait, this person is dangerous, or but what anger looks like to one person can be passion from another.
Yep.
And vice versa, right? Like,
especially culturally, especially in the business realm, which, let's be honest, the reason businesses are so hostile now is because we haven't really made room for emotions and feelings. But we're also realizing the long-term impacts of that. And especially in this education realm, like, we've got to make sure that we let folks know, like, I'm here to show up because it hurts to see people not show up. I'm not doing this because I want to rub your face in the mud or make you look bad. No, I want to find a way to support you. So me holding you accountable is to say you might not see a blind spot in your actions and how it's impacting the people around you. But because I see it and I want to work with you for a shared end goal, then let me point your eyes to where you might have a shortcoming, let you know that I'm here to support in some way, shape, or form to help, fill in that gap, to bridge the gap, so that you don't need me. I can step away, but you can now see that, like, oh, someone held me accountable. They helped me see that I can make some progress in another space.
That's right.
Thank you for pointing my eyes out. Now, if they don't receive that well, that's not on you, right? You walk in, you come in with your shoes fitted with peace. And if they don't receive it, you dust your feet off and go into the next spot that might receive your message with peace.
Yeah. So powerful. I was at a workshop last week. I don't know if the mask right. I don't have them right here. A group of young men. We were originally the conversation. This what I was telling you about. This frustration that was needed to be kind of coming out. There's lots of scenarios, but there's one in particular. We had a conversation with the team. We were gonna do at least one or two of the grades. We're gonna make masks that day, and the team at the school they went silent. And so we were like, "Hey, checking in. We got one more week. I'm traveling next week. I'm going to be out of town. I need to get materials packed up and either delivered or whatever. Let us know." No reply. Friday, 4:47, email comes in. "Oh, I've been out. We haven't had a chance to meet. We're just going to not do anything." And this is supposed to be Wednesday, the next week. And so when I get this on Friday, which, Friday at 4 something, I'm not usually checking emails, but I see it because I think it was coming to me, right? And I was like, I was ready. I was ready. You want to hear the tackling on these keyboard? I'm like, you cannot write an email right now. Ashanti, you know better than this. This is not, you enough. So, okay, I'm not going to reply right now. We'll let it marinate. Monday come around. I'm going to reply on Monday. something in me was still too hot to, because I think my frustration more than I was already going to be in the city. Like we had there was an agreement that we were going to do something extra to support the community. Okay. There's already drama in that community around providing support for all students, but making sure there's healing and space to communicate in a healthy way. Cause there's plenty of unhealthy communication that happened in that district. And so then the fact that this principal didn't like even make an effort to make something happen, I was like, and I didn't, thinking about these three parts, these ways of nonviolent communicating. I was like, I'm not going to be able to communicate healthy in this right now. So I was like, nope. So I reached out to the teacher. He said, you know what? Let's just come to my advisory and do something there. I said, okay. Now, there's a difference between 17 students and 300. Like, there's a big difference in us in a movement trying to help impact lives. Like, I recognize the benefit of everyone matters. But as a movement maker, you're like, well, okay, I'm down to use my energy for 17 without a doubt. But we could easily have been reaching 700. So I went to that place of frustration and I was like, okay, let's just do it. Right. And so at that time I came, met with the students, powerful 17 there. We did the thing. After it was over, a young man came up and he said, I have a question. Like, how do you, we talked about the masks. We talked about the mask they wear, the mask I wear, why we wear them, why we don't feel safe taking them off. Where can we make sure we have this space continually being safe for that? And he came up at the end. Everyone left. How do you do with anger? What he asked me. How do you do with anger? I was like, okay, young brother. I was like, well, you gotta ask yourself, where's anger coming from? Is it really anger, or is anger being used to cover up what you really feel? Right? Anger. And he named that he had just got into a fight the other day. Some guy called him a B. He punched him in the face. A big fight, big situation. And he's not a kid who normally fights, so people are like, "What's going on here?" But he's full. He's full up. And I asked him. I said, "Well, you've been feeling yourself angry a lot?" He said, "Yeah." He told me about the situation. I said, "Is anger covering up something?" He was like, "Yeah." And as soon as he started saying, "Yeah," tears started coming out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Like grief, shame, guilt. I said, "You feel comfortable sharing anything about any of those?" And he's like, he lost his mom 3 years before, right? 3 years. And I'm a mama's boy, so I'm like, oh, I just took a breath with him right there, just watching him have some space. I don't know his story because I've just met him. I only known him for 40 minutes, right? And he just talked about how he felt guilty as he would hear her tell him it was his fault for her drinking, and the guilt that he felt that somehow he had done something to cause her. And I said to him, brother, I'm sorry that you were told that, it is not yours. It is not yours. And I know that you're going to hear those recordings for a while, but I'm going to encourage you to start finding the support to begin the process of erasing those recordings. Because we were only talking on standing up in the middle of the room. There's nothing. I'm not a therapist. I'm a mentor. I'm a person, but I know that he's going to need some deep work. He's carrying a voice that's saying, "This is your fault. The reason I'm doing this," right? So all that to say, the fast forwarded, I would say, and so I said, "Can I just hold space with you and just let him get some room? I'm not in a hurry. Like all that's medicine. Let the medicine fall.
Yes.
Let the medicine fall, brother." And to find out that he had not. For 3 years, he had been just bottling it up, trying to be the tough man of the house, and had not. And it was hitting that level of landmine. It was like, as soon as somebody steps in it's explosion, boom, explosion, boom. And yeah, so so imagine, like, I know what I'm trying to do deep down, my frustration with this administrator. I'm trying to have an impact on more students and sometimes I could miss, because it easily could have been I missed that 17, which meant I missed that one. I know the purpose is trying to have a bigger impact, and sometimes I think I heard a quote. Somebody says, "Don't underestimate the power of small beginnings." And guess what? For that session, if nothing else, that one young man had a breakthrough for himself, right?
Yeah.
And that's where and I think that is a clarity for me, just to keep doing the work. You don't get to control all the other pieces that they don't get to control. You get to do what you're called to do. Go there, do it well.
Yes.
Don't give 50%. Don't give 10% because you're only working with 10% of what you were supposed. No, give 100% every time, and just know that the right doors are going to open for the right time and the right spaces. So, yeah.
I'm proud, man, because there's so much to be learned from that story. And one of the big things that stands out to me is the importance of understanding that having an attachment to the outcome is what limits the blessings and the magic that happens. Because if you told yourself, I'm not going to do it unless I can talk to 300, then you don't really know the impact that you planted 17 seeds. One of them, just one, began to sprout in front of you. But that one seed will become so fruitful that you will have no idea how to quantify the impact that one seed will have on so many others. But because we're so fixated on how we, the individual, has made an impact on others, right? Oh, I changed the lives of, I did this and I don't know what I've done. I watered the seed, I walked away. I planted the seed, I walked away. You know, years later, you might come around and realize that there's a whole orchard where people are feeding off of it, finding ways to take care of themselves, learning how to love themselves, learning how to hold space for themselves, learning how to take up space. But it was so indirectly related to what you did that because we don't get to see how we've made an impact, it begins to make us feel like what we're doing is not enough because we're attached to the doing and not the being. You were being a vessel. You just shared the message and it didn't matter who it was supposed to go to. There was no expectation or attachment to the outcome. I just know I'm supposed to share this message with you, and whatever happens after that, you know, to God be the glory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not about me. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. And that's one thing I've learned in my time. Because when I was teaching yoga at the start, I had this big dream of changing the world. But if 3 people show up on an online class, it takes a hit to the ego takes a hit. How am I supposed to change the world? Only 3 people showing up. I'm about to stop this. Whoa. Why? Is it because you were trying to stroke your own ego in the process, making yourself feel better because you have these numbers? Or is it that you realize that the impact that I'm having on someone is truly the difference maker, whether it's 1 or 1 million? My job is to find a way to inspire somebody else. And having gratitude for one then allows me to expand my outreach to where then the same gratitude I had when I reached 1 is the same gratitude I might have when I reach 1 million. There's no difference, man. I'm grateful to be a vessel.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I feel that. And I think that is so huge. I mean, ironically, the movement is called the Million Mask Movement, right? So I think my mind is always on like, how do we like on the volume? And I think that part of just kind of, why did we start this work? I didn't start this work 20 years ago thinking to try and reach 1 million. There were some young men in my class, about 7, 8, 10 of them, who were brilliant, but were acting like knuckleheads. Like it was them that was why this started. It was them. And every time I look back, and this morning, just ironically, I got a call from the sister of one of the alumni whose son, who's now 16, is going through some stuff at his school. Like, I met his uncle when he was 16, and now his nephew, 20 years later, who's 16, is like, are you still, she called she called her brother this morning. He gave her my number. She called me. I've met her many times, and she said, I need your help for my son. right?
Yeah.
And so the idea of that is continue ripples, right? Like, and I imagine you and your work in the idea of help one person, and who knows what things get planted from that person getting healthier and more well, what they get to help teach theirs and their. And I think it's that. And I think sometimes just getting back to that, to remember, I think intellectually, if you slow me down enough to be like, oh yeah, it matters, these in the moment. How do we check ourselves and connect ourselves deeper in the moment, right?
So helpful tool. I actually just taught this to my class, and I've been teaching everybody that's in my area. I mean, I love sharing this. There's the think, feel, do method. It's a think, feel, do triangle. And so if this is the triangle, the top of it is the thought. And we have somewhere between 45 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So we don't grab a hold of every thought, but we do grab a hold of a thought, and that thought, typically, if we plant it, I like to say we propagate it, right? We take that thought, we put it in a little glass of water and say, I'm going to let you grow. Well, it starts to turn into emotions and feelings that live present day in the body. And when those feelings are there, whether it's joyfulness and just bliss, or it's anger and frustration, it typically leads to us doing something. So you have the thought that turns into a feeling that then leads to an action. And all of these are rooted in the middle to an event that takes place. And we mentioned earlier how sometimes we just skip over feelings. We just think that there's a thought that leads to us doing something, but there is that middle ground of what was the feeling? What was the energy in motion, emotion that led you to, that fueled the action that you were about to take place in? I like to say work backwards. Some people will say, man, I feel like, I had this thought that came to mind, and then I felt like this, and it made me do this thing. Like, no, it didn't make you do it, right? What was the action that made you feel like you had, what thought made you feel like you had to make that happen? And then as we backtrack, we go back to the thought and ask three questions. First, is it true? The next, is it kind? And then, is it helpful or relevant? If the answer is no to either of those three questions, then you go grab a new thought and then repeat the session or the cycle in the reverse. Okay, I grabbed a new thought. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Great. Okay, what feeling does that lead to? Ooh, I feel that feeling. Is that action going to be something that happens to be an upward spiral or a downward spiral? And being able to notice it at the moment is what allows one to feel more empowered in their own experience, because we're not catching something in retrospect when it's already too late. We're catching ourselves in the moment. I had a student of mine, older gentleman, told me that technique changed the way he interacted with his son. Now, I just put this in a yoga class because I was like, we're going to do some shapes and poses. But I know sometimes when we're doing challenging things, we have thoughts that lead to feelings. Feelings lead us to wanting to do something or avoiding something. He said he's been applying that. And now I realize that I'm helping heal generational curses, because he has this tendency to maybe lash out and be angry. But his son picked up that because that's been a pattern that he's been observing for so long in his father. But then when his dad interacted with him in a completely new way, his son was like, Dad, you've never done that before. Whoa. He was blown away. He broke a pattern, and his son got to witness and experience it. So that changed the way his son thought about his dad, and the way his son feels about his dad, and the way his son might act with around his father. And that is the healing that I don't necessarily know how far it will go. I'm just glad I planted the seed, I watered it, and I have the opportunity for someone to report back to me and say that it's already been fruitful. So that's that unattachment to the outcome. I say, look, I'm just here to share the game with you that has helped me be a better version of myself and helped me cultivate more safety in my environment, especially the people who I interact with. And now they're changing their communities. And it's not about what I did. I'm a vessel. I got a message. I got a lesson from my therapist. I applied it to my life. It worked. I'm going to give it to you. I hope that it serves you in the same way, if not better. And if so, continue to share it, because if you hold on to the lesson, you stingy.
Yeah. Ooh, that's, first of all, thank you. You've dropped two major seed balls here in this system: the nonviolent communication piece, the seeds. One. is all it really takes to get that next level for the harvest, right? Like, but in the journey of trying to do the bigger thing, and this triangle. What did you call the triangle? You call it a
Think, feel, do.
think, feel, do.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is fantastic, brother. I mean, look, I don't know if you know we've already hit our time, but I'm being mindful. I promise to get you out of here at a certain time, and so we've twice in a row, like time warp has like just happened again. Thank you. Maybe who knows what this is going to lead to, because this is the first time we've done this, and I'm really thankful for you, and I thank you for sharing these nuggets of wisdom. We're going to put this in the show notes, and I'm going to be sharing this with the young men, and hopefully this summer as we launch our Social Emotional Leadership Academy, either we take a train up to where you are or we fly you down to where we are. I would love to have you sharing some wisdom with the young men in the Social Emotional Leadership Academy this summer. And we'll go over the logistics, but I want to plant the seed now that it is my hope that something we can do to support these young men here in the Bay Area as they go through this ordeal this summer of tapping into their own well-being, you know?
I've never been to the Bay, so man, I'd love to come out and be able to serve in that way. I'm realizing more and more as I reflect on my journey that my time as a 16-year-old, was really transformational because I understood that I was lost. I just didn't know where to go. Thankfully, I had a church home where I picked up some tools. And then when I realized I kind of outgrew that, I had more mentors and more people along the same journey who saw something in me and they said, man, let me pour into you. But it first started with me saying, like, I'm hungry. I just don't know where to eat. I don't know who's feeding. And had it not been people in my nearby community or someone who could point me in the right direction, I would have gone toward what was comfortable, at least from my environment. So anytime I get the opportunity to speak to other young men, especially in that same transitional period of life where they're a young adult, where people expect them to be an adult, but we really haven't had the opportunity or the experiences to help us determine what is it that we really want for ourselves. That's the prime spot for me, because had it not been for the folks who showed up for me when I was at that time, I wouldn't be the man I am today. This is my way of giving back and making sure that I can even do better than the people who helped me before. Because I can take all their tools, put them into a bite-sized piece and say, rather than going through 13 years of experience in order to get these lessons, let's do 30 minutes of just chit-chatting and then go apply them and see how you can further your journey and do better than me.
Let's go. Let's go.
Count
and
me
let's
in.
do it. Okay. You're in. You're in the fam of this movement and I'm so thankful for you. Folks, brother, Trevor Taylor, will you let folks know? We already have it in the last show. We're going to put it in the new show notes. Tell them how they can find you, where you're at out in the world, where they can get connected in that way. And we'll be in touch real soon.
Yes. Oh man, I'm glad to actually give this update. We have an online community that's growing called The Sanctuary. It's a broadcast channel right now where we're sending out more information on the updates and what exclusive information is to come soon for those who are seeking a community of people who are like-minded. We understand that movement, mindfulness, and meditation is helpful tools, but community is the part that many of us are missing out on. And with loneliness and isolation sweeping the nation as a new epidemic, that it takes leaders who are willing to show up and realize it's bigger than me. So the sanctuary is a space for not just me to share all of the wisdom, but for me to point out that all of us have something that we can offer to one another. So when it comes to joining that part of that community, what I say is go to Instagram, put in just like Trevor, you'll find my account. And right there in the links, you'll see the sanctuary. Join the broadcast channel, get all the information that you're looking for, learn more about it, receive some motivation, some inspiration, some testimonies about how you can better yourself one moment at a time, one breath at a time. 24 hours can be quite a long journey.
Oh, brother. Folks, Trevor and I didn't make masks today. This is the first episode where we didn't make no masks, but you felt them come off. You felt the connection. I hope you felt it. I know I felt it. And brother Trevor, thank you. Thank you so much for your words, your wisdom, your willingness to be in this space again. And there's an open invitation. So as you putting new things out in the world, like, look, let's just say, I always hear people in this podcast like, oh, this is the person who's been here 4 or 5 times. I was like, oh, how does that work? This is how it works. You feel the connection, you feel the resonance, you feel like we're still not done because I'm already over time and I'm having to shut everything down. Brother, thank you for being a part of the journey with us.
Yes, man. Such a pleasure and honor. And again, thank you for holding this space for other people to share their testimony and for allowing me to come up here and do the same thing.
Well, folks, you can still make your mask at millionmask.org. Trevor and I just had another amazing conversation on building brotherhood connection in this space where we often feel disconnected. So if you don't know anyone yet, make a mask and find maybe one person you can share it with. And then maybe it will grow faster than you can imagine. So we'll see you soon. Brother Trevor, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again. Take care, brother.
Yes, sir. Much love.
The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie and graphics by Kelly Wong. Guests are managed by Dan Paloma, and the podcast is edited by Samuel Matingo. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast, and for every guest that has been a part of the show, you are now a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is brought to you by the Ever Forward Club, and if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share this with someone. We look forward to having more conversations that matter. And please remember, there's more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you.